Hey, welcome back. This week I'm going to be talking about major scales and keys. So last week I talked about how to read sheet music on the guitar as you go up the fingerboard. This week I'm going to be talking about a little bit more about how the notes are ordered and what this whole thing about like major scales and key signatures are. So hopefully, and if this doesn't make sense to you, if this is too much for you, you can come back to it. Maybe it'll make some more sense later. But I'm hoping I laid this out well enough that it's not too overwhelming. Let me jump over here. So this is what we covered last week. We covered how to read sheet music on the rest of the guitar. So now right here I'm going to jump down to this section called step sizes. And let me go back to the other view here for a second. So on that sheet under step sizes I have whole step and half step. So what are a whole step and a half step? A whole step means 2 frets. So actually a distance of 2 frets. So like let's say from the 1st fret to the 3rd fret, or from the 3rd fret to the 5th fret, those are both whole steps. And a half step is 1 fret. So for example, the 1st fret to the 2nd fret is a half step. 2nd fret to the 3rd fret, again, half step, right? So we've got whole steps, 2 frets is a distance of 2 frets, a half step's distance of 1 fret. All right, go back to the music here, or my cheat sheet. All right, got this next section labeled chromatic scale. And this is showing, let me go back here so you can see the guitar better. These are the notes in order if you go up 1 fret at a time. Okay? Alright, so back to my sheet here. These chromatic scales are both labeled starting on C. And these 2 lines both say the same thing. One is just labeled with sharps and one is labeled with flats. So I'd say maybe for the moment just ignore the flats and just look at this line with the sharps. So I'm going to start on a C. Okay, on the 1st fret of the B string. Okay, so C sharp is the next fret. D is the next fret. Then D sharp. Then E. Then F. Then F sharp. Then G. G sharp. A. A sharp. B. And then we're back to C. 12 frets higher than we started. And then it just repeats itself over and over again. And again, the second line here, that's the same thing, just labeled differently. So C, D flat, D, E flat, E, F, etc. So something I want you to notice here is that there are whole steps between most notes that are not sharps and flats. So for example, there's a whole step between C and D. So again, whole step is 2 frets. There's a whole step from D to E. And then from E to F is a half step. So E and F are 1 fret apart. All right, F to G is a whole step. G to A is a whole step. A to B is a whole step. And B to C is a half step. So the easiest way to remember this is that all of the notes that are not sharps and flats are 2 frets apart except for B to C and E to F. So we got C, D, E, F, G. So remember E and F, 1 fret apart. E, F, G, A, B, C. B and C are 1 fret apart as well. All right, great. So that's the chromatic scale. All right, and the order, that's the order the notes go in. So the next thing I want to talk about here is the major scale. If you notice here, I have it labeled WWH, WWWH. That stands for whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And those are step sizes. And that, those are the steps to create a major scale. So if you start at a C, and you go up a whole step, then a whole step, and a half step, and then a whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, a little faster. Okay, that's a C major scale. I started on C, and I did whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and ended on C. That's a C major scale. I could do the same thing with a D major scale, right? I just start on a different note and do the same thing. Yeah, and those are the step sizes to create a major scale. And you could even look here at the chromatic scale and reason that out as well. So you got to start with the C, you got whole, so C to D is a whole step, D to E is a whole step. Then you want a half step E to F, whole step F to G, whole step G to A, whole step A to B, half step B to C. So yeah, that's why so the C major scale in music is used a lot in beginner stuff, and it gets treated kind of special. The reason is because the C major scale is, and the key of C major is the one with no sharps or flats in it. So if you're learning how to play piano, that's like only white keys. If you're learning how to play guitar, that's the key signatures without sharps or flats in them. They tend to be the easiest to start with. So yeah, C major scale. Again, going down here, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, no sharps or flats. That is this pattern, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Okay. And below here, I'm not going to go over all these, but I will go over a few of them. These are all of the other keys. So there's not really that many of them. And guitar is kind of interesting, especially classical guitar, because you don't see some of these keys very often. The reason being because certain keys have more open strings in them, for example, and they're easier to play in. So like, for example, you see C major, you play in C major a lot. You play in, I would say up to, I'd say G major, D major, A major, and E major are very common. B I see occasionally. And then F sharp and C sharp major are very uncommon. And flat keys in classical guitar, you see them sometimes, usually up to maybe like 2 or 3 flats. After that, it's a lot less common. So you really only need to know like half of these to cover, most classical guitar music. So just for practice, to make sure we understand, I'm going to walk through a couple of these sharp keys and explain how I generated these. So again, starting with the C major scale. And something else you may have heard is this concept of circle of fifths. And I'm going to explain what that is. Without the fancy circle diagram, I'm just going to explain it starting with the C major scale. So starting with the C major scale, we go to the 5th note. So 1, C is the first one, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we say, okay, G major is the next key we're going to write. That's here on the sharp side. Okay, and when you're writing a major scale, one thing you want to do is write all of the letters in order first. So G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then you want to add sharps or flats. Like another way to say that is you don't want to write the G major scale with like a G flat here, because then you have 2 G's in a row. So all of these major scales are always going to be in alphabetical order, and you're going to add sharps or flats. So, okay, So let's go back up here to the chromatic scale and do this whole half pattern. So starting with a G, whole step up to A, whole step up to B, half step up to C. Okay, then we come back here to the beginning, whole step up to D, whole step up to E, and now we need another whole step. So it's going to go from E to F sharp, and that's why I have a sharp here. And then a half step from F sharp to G. Okay, so that would be our G major scale. And then again, we count 5 notes starting from G. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5th note is a D. So that's the next sharp key we write. And I'm not going to go through this whole exercise again, but this D major scale here now has the same sharps as the key before, and then it adds another one. So the key of D major has 2 sharps. We go to the 5th note here to A, follow the pattern again. We have 3 sharps now. Again, it's the same sharps as before. We just add one more. And it's going to be like that for all the sharp keys. It's going to be the same as the previous key. We just add one more sharp. Then we go to the E major scale. We got 4 sharps. B major scale. 5 sharps. F sharp major scale. 6 sharps. C sharp major scale. 7 sharps. And something interesting about these two are the E sharp and the F sharp. Because remember, I told you before, sharp means you just go up 1 fret, flat means you go down 1 fret. So, and I also told you that E and F are 1 fret apart. So what is an E sharp, right? Isn't it just an F? And the answer is yes, it is just an F. It's the same note. It's the same position on the guitar. However, conceptually, we think of it differently. Just because it makes this whole thing with the keys nicer. Because the reason is because it would be confusing. It would be more confusing and clutter up music more if this E sharp was written as an F, and then we had to like distinguish between an F and an F sharp all the time. It's easier just to know that those are separate all the time. I'm not going to go over the flat keys other than to say that it's similar to the sharp keys, except remember I told you, you're going to the 5th note to get the next sharp key. On the flat keys, you go to the 4th note. And people say circle of fifths. It's the circle of fifths, right? Not the circle of fourths. A 4th and a 5th are inversions of each other. So if you went backwards from like C, it went 5 step backwards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You get F. Then you're in the key of F. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. B flat. That's the next key. You're just doing it. You're doing the same thing. You're still going through the circle of fifths. You're just doing it backwards as you do the flat keys. The flat keys are also the same in that you're going to write them in alphabetical order first and then add flats. And there's not too much more to say about that. Maybe in a later video I'll cover chords and this kind of stuff. These keys and whatnot, they're going to make a lot more sense later on when we start adding pieces that have different key signatures. I'll go back and revisit this sheet and maybe give some reminders that I showed it. So that way, when you're exposed to other key signatures and different stuff in the future, this sheet will probably make more sense if it doesn't now. But yeah, hopefully that was helpful. Sorry if it was too much. Again, if it was confusing or I didn't explain it well, which is very likely, because it's not really a hard concept, but it is if you haven't been exposed to it a lot. But once you're exposed to it a lot, it becomes very easy. But I wanted to give it to you ahead of time so you know what to look out for. Anyways, this sheet is below in a PDF in the video description. If this was helpful, please like the video. If you want to be notified when I upload another one, please subscribe. Thanks for stopping by.